Hey everyone, this is the Black Manga Critic here with a review of the Promised Neverland chapters 49 and 50. Now basically I had missed both Weekly Shonen Jump Thursdays because I was tired, I was working, I was doing a whole bunch of things, but basically we're going to be right back on track starting next week, so be sure to look out for that content on the days that I've designated. Also remember to like, comment, and subscribe if you're a new subscriber. Follow me on Twitter, like the page on Facebook. And if you're not a new subscriber, you know the drill, so don't worry about it. You're here. This video is for you guys, so enjoy. Now, basically, I'm going to be talking about two things that I normally talk about whenever I talk about the Promised Neverland. I'm going to be talking about the story, what's going on with characters, things of that nature, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about the art. So this video is not going to be particularly long. It's not going to be about any sort of cockamamie theories that I have or anything like that. It's just going to be straight to an analysis, things that I noticed that were interesting, and so on and so forth. So one thing I think is great about Emma as a character is that, one, she's clearly one of the few women protagonists that are, at the forefront of Weekly Shonen Jump, right? And that's a huge thing because Weekly Shonen Jump is geared towards, young boys, teenagers, things like that. So for Weekly Shonen Jump to be able to say, hey, like we can put a woman or a girl such as Emma at the forefront of our magazine really says something about where the direction of Weekly Shonen Jump could go, right? Because we still get tons of boys, and I don't think that's necessarily going to change anytime soon, but it is nice to see that the direction is a little bit different with one of the sort of I think is going to be one of the future pillars of Shonen Jump, right? In the Promised Neverland, we see a girl in Emma as one of the pillars, as one of the as at the forefront. So I think that's huge, 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 huge. So that's all I'm going to say about that. But if we're talking about chapters 49 and 50, and Emma as sort of the focal point of those chapters, we have to think about the ability that she's sort of shown time and time again, in that she's able to compartmentalize her emotions to such a degree that it's man, as a reader, as someone who's I'm 28, and I don't think I can compartmentalize my emotions in the way that Emma does, right? And in some ways, that's sort of the sort of supernatural, almost preternatural thing that you'll see in Shonen Jump manga. But even so, it's still pretty impressive to do it in the situation that she's in, right? She, when she needs to learn how to hunt, she's able to compartmentalize her emotions and say, hey, one, I need to learn how to hunt. Two, I really need to learn how to hunt to eat, but also to really, kill demons when I need to. And three, I need to learn how to hunt to protect my family, right? So there are all these things that she's clearly thinking about, and she goes through all those things as she's learning, all those sort of emotions and thoughts as she's learning how to hunt. And I think Emma's just such an impressive character, because there's one point where they have to use where she has to use the Vita, right, the plant that's used for the Gunpa ceremony, when that demons would normally do when they kill their prey or whatever. She's seen Connie not lifeless body, but at the time she thought it was lifeless, but she's seen Connie's body just spread out with the Vita in her chest. And she still manages to say, okay, this is something that's happened at this point in time, and I need to compartmentalize my emotions so that I can learn the things that I need to learn in the present time so that I can protect my other family members who aren't dead, right? But also sort of say, okay, Connie's death won't be in vain. Norman's death won't be in vain, because I still think Norman's alive. But things like that are really, really well done. I also love Emma's conversation with Musica. That's one of the best sort of parts of this manga, I think, ever, where we have Emma having a conversation with another girl or a woman. I don't know how old Musica is necessarily, but we do know that this is one of those few instances where she's had an interaction with another girl who isn't a psycho, right? So I think it's really interesting, that we are able to have a sort of conversation with Emma, who, we sort of register to be human, and Musica, who we sort of register to be a sort of maybe a demon-human hybrid, right? And they're able to just have a nice conversation and be friends and laugh and reminisce and things like that. And I thought it was just such a great moment. And I'm going to talk a little, and just to sort of mention quickly the art of this moment. When Posuka really draws it, there's so much light, right? And clearly they're in a cage, not a cage, a cave. But the fact that there's so much light when this conversation is happening, I think really sort of, and there are all those little sort of fairies and pixie sort of animals flying around. when they're having those conversations. I think Posuka does a really great job of showing that, like, hey, like, they're still, people, they're still, sentient beings that have emotions and feelings and things like that, and that can get along, and that can, say that, hey, like, even though we're, like, walking through a cave that doesn't have, like, too much light and things like that, this is still a very light-hearted and wonderful and heartwarming moment. And I think, Shirai and Posuka do a great job of showcasing that sort of lightheartedness and that heartwarming nature of the scene. So that's basically all I wanted to say about Emma. But if we're going to get into, let's say, like, some of the themes that are brought up in chapters 49 and 50, Emma's a key part of it, because it's her reactions and her, her emotional reactions, and her compartmentalization of particular bits of information that really bring home the sort of gravity of these particular themes, right? So probably the first thing, I guess, that I want to, think about is just, like, eating, like, animals and, sort of having, like, factory farming and mass producing, like, human beings and things like that. Like, all those things clearly, make Emma, like, sick to her stomach. You know what I mean? Like, you can see it in her face, But not only is she sick to her stomach, and, she's also angry. She's also very, like, saddened by these things. And I think that's something that's great, because, like, those types of themes, always sort of bring about a range of emotions. And I think that one thing that I really appreciate about Shirai and Posuka is that they're able to write and draw these range of emotions whenever someone like Emma is reacting to these things, right? We don't necessarily see Ray react too much to these particular things, because Ray's very sort of insular in a lot of ways. But Emma is, right, Emma can be insular, both insular and very explicit in how she feels about things. And she can, and she's able to sort of say, okay, like, yes, I have this whole range of emotions about factory farming, about having to kill animals, about killing, right? About having to be a leader to protect my family and things like that. And she's going through all those things, right? On top of the fact that her ear's, like, screwed up. Well, her left ear, right? Her left ear is screwed up. So, I mean, Emma's, like, such a great character in that she also very much so acts as sort of, like, sort of placeholder for the reader and how, we're probably going to feel about these themes. So I think that there's a way in which, like, the themes are really, like, gruesome in themselves, right? But the way that Emma sort of acts as, a sort of reactionary, sort of participant in this manga and in these chapters, really, really good stuff. And I could go on and on and on about, like, the, like, disgusting, like, nature of, like, slaughtering animals and, having and hunting animals and things like that. But, like, that's not really necessarily what this video is about. So that's why I don't want to take too much time with that. So I'm basically just going to quickly move into, the art and how the art sort of accentuates certain things. So for thinking about the art, we can look at, like, that sort of really beautiful spread panel when Emma and Sungju come out of the caves to, to learn how to, like, do certain things and to see the terrain and things of that nature. It's just like, Posuka, just a badass, like, artist. You know what I mean? Like, and if you haven't seen any of her other stuff, like, you can check her out on Twitter. She has some great, like, she's always posting, so you can check her out on Twitter. And you could, to get back to the manga, like, that spread page is, like, really beautiful. It's sort of one of those things where it's like, yes, this world is overrun by demons and it's very dangerous and things of that nature, but we do still see that, there is still beauty in this world. And you see that in 49 and 50. And Posuka is very good at showing, like, the beauty within, like, sort of the madness, I guess, if you want to call it. I'm not talking about that weekend, like, CD. I'm talking about, like, beauty in the madness. Like, when you see something like, Musica and Emma's conversation in chapter 50, and just how bright that is, and how much sort of Posuka, makes a very considered effort to show that, like, their conversation is light-hearted, it's heartwarming, it's bright, right? And I think that's sort of like, little, like, artistic nods to just how wonderful, like, of an artist Posuka is, and just how much he accentuates what Shirai's trying to do with his writing. So stuff like that is, like, really, really, really well done. I love it. I guess actually the last thing that I really want to talk about is, like, what's going on with that message that Ray sort of, like, decoded or whatever. I know that Manga Stream has, like, a couple of, like, not panels, like, a couple of pages that show William and Nerva, like, talking about, like, solving a puzzle or whatever. But when I read the same chapters in the Weekly Shonen Jump digital version that Viz puts out, like those weren't there. So I'm not sure what's going on with that. Maybe you guys can tell me in the comment section down below. But I do think that, like, you know, Ray is clearly like doing a whole lot of stuff on the side, and that's why, like, you know, like in like previous chapters when we see Ray, you know, intently listening to Sungju and Musica have a conversation in both in their language and both in their sort of like demon kind of language and English, right? We see that, and we see Ray's very intent. We also see Ray again on the sides, like, you know, listening, you know, very intently, like trying to solve this like sort of puzzle thing in the pen, right? Stuff like that is like, that's where Ray sort of gets to shine. But I do think that, like, in terms of like the message and, like, you know, what do you think Ray's going to figure out, or what do you think is like the flash of light, like, supposed to going to like be like when we get to the next chapter or whatever, you know? Personally, I think that, like, it could be maybe like a way to understand like the demon sort of language and learn that language and things like that nature. Maybe Willie Minerva put it in there, but I also think that Ray is like slowly but surely trying to learn the demon language, because I think, like, at some level that has to happen. Like, the kids have to learn the language, otherwise they're going to be screwed for the most part. So I think that's something that's also happening in this, and it's interesting. I think that, like, you know, Ray and Emma do great work, but Emma, like, clearly steals the show for both of these chapters. Again, shout out to Weekly Shonen Jump for, you know, allowing this manga to really flourish and to publicize this manga so that it can flourish, because we need more of that. You know, just because Shonen is a demographic that's geared towards boys doesn't mean that you can't have girls or women as the main sort of protagonists, right? So, you know, like I said, again, shout out to Weekly Shonen Jump for that. Shout out to the sort of publicists that are working there. Shout out to Shirai and Posuka for their you know, work that they do with the manga and things like that. And that's pretty much all I got to say about, you know, the Promised Neverland chapter 49 and 50. So again, like, comment, subscribe. You know, find me on Twitter, find me on Facebook, and I'm the Black Manga Critic with this review of the Promised Neverland chapter 49 and 50. And I'm out.